Welcome back to Eternally Amy, and I have to tell you something. So, it is still currently at this very moment summer break for my kids. And so you will probably hear some background noise. And there are a lot of schools of thought on this. For me personally, it's part of my life. Um, it is very rare that there is no one at my house making any sound or no random leaf blower outside my window that decides it's time to blow off any debris from surrounding trees. It is what it is. And so I just want to make that apology ahead of time if you are somebody who's very concerned about audio quality. Perhaps this is not for you, and that's okay. You can always read the transcript if you so choose, but in the spirit of adopting the Seth Godin, it's not for you um, phrase, that's what I'm going to say to you is that I love you and appreciate you for everything that you stand for with your firm belief in audio quality, but you may not get that here. And so, love and respect to you. Okay, that being said, I'm doing a series called Journaling with the Purge System. So, what we'll be discussing throughout this series is moving from fear to freedom. Okay. So basically, this is an ADHD tool, but it's also a tool for general life or for sobriety. And there is no one way to journal. All right. I just want to make that clear. There are no rules. There isn't one way of journaling that I'm going to present to you today that is going to be mind blowing, that you have never heard before, and it's going to change the trajectory of your entire life. That is not the purpose of this series. The purpose of this series is for me to share what I do, what works for me, and to also shed some light on the idea of journaling in general. So many of us have been told by our counselors or religious mentors or leaders or sponsors or anybody in our lives that is trying to encourage us to make some headway in our personal growth that we should be journaling. I mean, I know that I have heard this from the beginning of time, right? And in some form or another, people will encourage other people to try and journal and write things out. Okay. And so, why? Why this push for journaling? Well, firstly, as far as I understand it, keep in mind I'm not a doctor, okay? But there is a connection between the brain and the hand. And there's a whole scientific rabbit hole that you can go down if you're interested in studying this. But basically, a few reasons are enhanced memory retention. So, writing by hand basically engages multiple senses. And as far as I understand it, it leads to deeper memory uh, recording inside your brain. So you can easily or more easily recall something that you've written down. I know that this is true for me. Secondly, writing improves, like with an actual implement, improves comprehension and understanding. So handwriting notes faster organizes in the brain, the ability to sort of summarize and encapsulate what you are hearing so that you can just quickly gather the main highlights. So you may not be like transcribing word for word, but you'll get the general gist and be able to recall that more easily. I guess third would be increased creativity and idea generating possibilities. So when we write something by hand, or at least for me, what happens is the handwriting process allows time, right? It's a little bit slower sometimes than it is to type, depending on how fast you type and your words per minute. But really, that gives you a chance to boost creativity. I know a lot of times my written journaling is also incorporating small little drawings. And I'm not an artist, but I'll make little clouds or bubbles, or I'll draw arrows around things or boxes. This is particularly interesting if you're on the phone with someone. If you've ever gotten out a legal pad and a pencil and you're jotting down notes while you're talking to somebody on the phone, sometimes you'll just kind of notice, oh my gosh, I'm sort of doodling. I'm making a little scene or I'm drawing a person. This is really embarrassing, but I'll let you know that there is a general doodle that I do, which is of a person with a big old afro. Um, and I hope that that's not a culturally insensitive thing to say. I've been doing this since I was a little kid, this same drawing. And quite honestly, I probably should look into the meaning of it. But it's a big old afro, and the person is wearing sunglasses and smoking a cigarette with curly smoke coming out of the cigarette. I don't know. I need mental help. What can I say? All right, sorry, little sidebar, but coming back to the reasons why people encourage journaling, right, is also enhanced motor skills. So writing by hand improves fine motor skills and the whole hand-eye coordination and all the things that are kind of essential, right, for cognitive development. And then finally, better focus and reduce distractions. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that once we start typing and, have failed to apparently turn off notifications and things start pinging or present themselves to our attention span, it's just quick. It's a quick way to get off track, right? And to focus our attention on something else. And for the ADHD brain, like mine, for example, that's just the kiss of death. It's like start the clock. And all of a sudden, I'm over here wondering, how many uh, how many baby carrots you can fit inside of a Volkswagen or something like that, right? Like I'm just immediately on another topic. And so if this happens 4, 5, 6 times while I'm journaling, like forget about it. I'm gone. So research it, look it up if that's something you're interested in. But when we write things down, basically, we just have a better ability to process what we're doing and we have better recall than we do generally typing on a page. Okay, so that being said, this series is called Purge Journaling, right? And how disappointed do you think I was when my little cutesy little acronym had seemingly been absconded with by the movie The Purge, right? And okay, fine. I guess no one can commandeer a word or a phrase for their own purposes. What? And expect that it will remain theirs? Huh? And that's why we have a shared language system, okay? And also, if we want to hire lawyers to help us with copyrights and trademarks, we can do that. I don't really bother with that kind of thing, especially for podcasting. But one of the main goals in my life is to share tools, right? It's just to share tools. And so make no mistake, it's not lost on me that The Purge is supposedly a very scary movie, which, by the way, I will not watch because let's face it, if I'm being totally 1000% honest with you, it's because I'm practicing contempt prior to investigation, which is not healthy for me in general with things that promote growth. But my older kids tell me it is a terrifying movie. And so, therefore, I generally stay away from horror movies or scary movies or anything like that because uh, rewind to the second grade when I watched A Watcher in the Woods, which was a Disney movie at the time and still terrifies me. I did not sleep for like 3 nights when I watched that in the second grade. And I am still pretty much traumatized by it when I turn it on. Okay. So anyway, all of that to say, if the purge is your thing, great, you love it. It's a great cinematic piece of art. Wonderful. I'm sure there are many valuable conclusions you could draw from that movie. So don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not against the movie The Purge. Okay, just a little disclaimer there. So now that, we're clear on that, let's go with a definition of the word purge so that we all kind of know what we're talking about in this context. So to purge is to cleanse or get rid of impurities, unwanted elements, or undesirable persons. Doesn't that sound good, right? So it can really apply to like physical, emotional, mental, or metaphorical cleansing. So it's also true that somebody like me who maybe needs to purge their closet could benefit from it, which I'm going to share with you I just did and what I gained from it. So I do know from personal experience that when I purge anything, I feel much, much better. So it's a process, right? Purging is a process of letting go of what no longer serves me. So I alluded to this a second ago. I recently purged my closet. I had lost a ton of COVID weight. So basically, no one believes me when I tell them this, but it is the absolute truth. You can ask my family members. During COVID, I straight up ate Lucky Charms all day, every day. I mean, I ate bowls and bowls of Lucky Charms. That's what I did. Unsurprisingly, I gained a ton of weight. And I think I was stress eating, but anyway, that's another topic entirely. But it took me a full year to lose this COVID weight, a full year. And I waited a full year after I lost the COVID weight to actually get rid of one even single solitary item in my closet that didn't fit anymore because secretly inside of me, there is a fat kid with a scarcity mentality, okay? I am that kid who brought home their world's finest chocolates to sell at school and, for a fundraiser to sell to my grandparents or whatever. And I came home and like ate the entire box myself, and my mom had to pay for it. So, there is something inside of me that has a scarcity mentality with all of this. And I fear, of course, that I will become chubby again. And so that fat kid inside of me just has a lot of trouble believing that she will never be that chubby person again. So I get that this is a sidebar, but let's go with it for a minute because it is connected. I basically had to have like an intervention on myself and tell myself not to have a scarcity mentality when I was purging this closet, but to have more of an abundance mindset about these fat clothes of all things. And I just have to tell you, I had to look myself in the face in the mirror and say with my finger pointed at myself, if you regain the weight, it is not a reflection of your value as a person, Amy. It is not. There will be clothes for you to purchase should you regain the weight. There will be clothing at that time for you to purchase. And it sounds like so dumb, but there is something inside of me that has a belief, a false belief that someone's going to stop making clothes and then I'm going to have nothing to wear. And if you've ever seen hoarders after 8 pregnancies and had to, sort of gain weight, lose weight, and you had clothing in your closet that was from size 0 to size 16, if you've ever been in a situation similar to that, you know what I'm talking about. And essentially, because I didn't get rid of any of this stuff, well, I did after my fourth baby was born because I thought I was done having kids. And then when my surprise fifth came along, I replenished that entire closet and then some. Did you hear that? And then some. Like as if I were losing and then gaining weight and then some, right? The same thing happened that they say happens to you physically when you lose weight and then just go back to your regular eating habits. The same thing happened to me with my closet. I got pregnant with number 5 and I gained a whole new set of clothing and then some. And so I didn't get rid of anything at all. So I was at this point that instead of my waistline bulging, my closet was bulging after I lost this closet weight because I really hadn't totally purged all of those pregnancy clothes. If I'm being totally honest, I've gotten rid of a couple things. So I had a lot of stuff in there. Okay. So I kind of had no choice. I was out of space. My hangers were jammed so tightly together. This is embarrassing for me to tell you guys, okay? But I could not find the clothes that I wanted and could wear. So anyway, I knew that I was going to face a day of reckoning with this closet. I knew I was going to walk in there at any given moment, any day, and just completely being totally overwhelmed by my closet. Maybe something was going to fall off the top shelf, and then it would be like this cascade of stuff falling on me. So there is actually a scene in So I Married an Axe Murderer when Mike Myers walks into Nancy Travis's closet, Harriet's closet, and closes the door. And when he closes the door, the force of the door closing just causes this cascade of items to just come crashing down on him. And that's kind of what I pictured happening to me, that I would just get smothered to death with one false move inside my closet. Just clothes would just come just hurling down at me from all directions. And it probably could have happened if I hadn't have just had this intervention, right? So, of course, now shockingly, and P.S., it took me the greater part of a month to fully purge this closet, and I had to have help. One of my daughters helped me. She was trying to gain a little bit of extra money, and I was like, oh, I have a job for you. No worries. I got something. And so now that my closet has been purged, shockingly, I feel much better and less smothered by this Mount Everest of clothing. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not that massive potential volcano waiting to erupt in my space. Okay. So back to mental and emotional health and purging. Basically, my mental and emotional health is paramount for me. Ergo, hence, vis-a-vis journaling is how this is going to all come together. So oftentimes, when people say, oh, you should journal about that, it is well intentioned, but they don't really tell you how to do it, right? It's like me walking into my closet with my daughter and just going, yeah, let's get rid of some of this stuff, right? And quite frankly, that hoarders show, they did a great job of showing people this is how you purge. You take out all the stuff, you lay it on the grass, you're making piles, donate trash and put away. Like they have this whole system. I'm not doing it justice. Sorry about that. But anyway, it's categorizing, right? And this is what works really well for me. So I needed specific directions when it came to journaling as well. And as I mentioned, I've been told to journal most of my life, and I actually have been writing for the majority of my life in a non-systematic way. And that's fine too. Again, whatever works for you is great. But when I really became obsessed with my mental and emotional well being, particularly after I got sober, what I really had to do was get a systematic way of journaling going. And I needed help to try and figure out what that was. And so, again, this is not a recipe, this is what worked for me. And so, journaling with the Purge system, I'm calling it the Purge System, moving from fear to freedom. And again, this is particularly for the ADHD brain, but for also anybody's brain, any brain in particular. Okay. Purge is going to stand for power in the powerlessness, finding power in the powerlessness. The U is for understanding opportunity over obligation. The R is for reframing and resetting. The G is for gratitude. And the E is for extras. And the extras are spot checking throughout the day. Like, say you're journaling in the morning, just checking in throughout the day, and or different methods of journaling. Like, say this systematic approach is not for you. Cool. Maybe there is something else within those extras that is for you. So, have you ever been sort of caught up and you're crying really hard and then you feel better afterwards? That would be an example of an emotional purge. This is the same sort of thing, I mean, after my closet purge, I had some work to do. I had to go drop off clothes at a clothing bin. After an emotional purge, I may have, a bunch of tissues to throw away. I may have to redo makeup, whatever it is. There's sort of a process, right? There is sort of not a purge, an explosion, and then you walk away, right? So this is, again, a systematic approach. And really, if I think about it, it has been close to 40 years that I've been writing in some form or another. And so this particular series is just what I've learned over those 40 years, but more specifically honed when I got sober and really realized, okay, I need something that is solution based per se. And so I'm working on my 14th year of sobriety. And so within that time is when I've kind of collected all of these different methods and looked at them and examined them and really kind of said, what is it that has really worked well for me, and put them together. So with that setup, I hope you enjoy my all-time favorite journaling system, the Purge System. Okay, so let's get into it. The first letter P is for powerlessness, right? It is finding the power in powerlessness. I talk about this a lot in my writing. I talk about this a lot in my podcast. Essentially, this is going to be venting and resenting and writing about some bee that's currently in your bonnet. Okay. So, what's bugging you? So, there's a saying that we have in the 12-step programs that we often wake up with untreated alcoholism. So, essentially, that involves recognizing what I'm afraid of. And trust me, it does not have to be something big. It can be like, I have a meeting today and I feel totally unprepared, or I have an issue with one of my shoes. It's not quite fitting the same as the other one is fitting. I got to figure this out. I got to look up a YouTube video. It can be totally small, okay? But really, truly, my natural instinct when I wake up in the morning is not to jump into a solution-based mentality. It is like I wake up in some stage of fear, which sounds a little weird if you're not in the 12-step arena or mental health space. It sounds like you wake up afraid, like what's wrong with you? You really are messed up. But it is kind of natural if you're honest with yourself to sort of wake up in a panic of like, okay, wait, what do I have to do today? What's the next step, right? I mean, that's something maybe more relatable. Now, for me, my natural tendency is to want to hide, to just pull the covers up over my head and want to just eat a bag of potato chips. That's what I want to do, right? And so it is not a far stretch for me to go from being in some amount of fear to just wanting to hide and not deal with it at all, and then becoming like angry. And for my brain to find something to pinpoint or a person to pinpoint and then inflate something that's not even there and create a fictitious story to go along with this fear, right? That's kind of the entire thing about fear is false evidence appearing real, which you will hear me say over and over if you haven't yet. But for example, I'll start out, going, geez, what do I have to do to get some work done today? Um, why do I even volunteer at school and deal with those people, that have these misogynistic mentalities or whatever it is, right? Um, these are kind of rhetorical questions. It's like, no, big picture, the reason you are doing work in this space of mental health and writing and authoring, the reason you're showing up at school is you want to be a part of your kids' lives before they don't want you around campus. It's not to please anybody else, it's to build community with other parents. It's not to get some accolade because trust me, ain't no school giving out those accolades at any amazing rate, right? It is to be a part of something bigger than myself, right? I choose to volunteer. I want to be a presence while my kids are still not minding having me show up on campus. I want them to remember later on down the road that I showed up and that I was in it for the long game, regardless of any of the BS that goes on at or can go on at those institutions of school or at a place of business. All right. These are things that are obvious. They're not that hard, but I wake up in fear and I will forget them because I'm focusing on a little tiny thing that was said or thought that I'm exaggerating in my mind. So when I say that it is important for me to get up and journal and write these things down with my hand, I'm essentially kind of like venting. I'm essentially resenting something or trying to get that fear out of my head. I'm trying to get to, as Father Richard Rohr calls it, a fundamental yes, a fundamental acceptance. So all of a sudden, that misogynist viewpoint at school is no longer misogynistic. Okay. It's just a yes and. Oh, yes, they see things like this. And also, they see things like that. And also, my interpretation of their behavior could be inaccurate. And also, maybe there are some threads of truth to it. And also, maybe I need not attach myself to these outcomes. And also, do you see what I'm saying? So, essentially, it's to rid myself of any attachment to people, places, and things. And again, this is the first step in any 12-step program. And really, it should be the first step of any time that I pick up my pen to journal. For me personally, this is what I need to do is get that out before I can find myself in any kind of a space to receive healthy, peaceful input. that it's also going to be something that generates as I write, because I get that out and I can say, okay, God of my understanding, higher power of my understanding, here's all the shit that I'm upset about, or here's all the stuff that is making me feel totally out of control because I am powerless over it, right? So when I'm able to do that, when I realize and acknowledge and accept that I'm powerless over something, I approach it with a whole different spirit than I would approach it completely like full of fear, right? So I write these things out, and all of a sudden they don't quite seem so powerful anymore, right? And I will find that if I have not taken the time to do this in the morning, and I don't always do it, and it's evidenced in the way that my day will go sometimes, right? Not all the time. Nothing is true all the time for me, but it doesn't serve me super well usually, nor does it serve those around me super well. If I don't take time to do my meditation and my journaling, because those are the things that help cultivate an open mind for me. And also, the other thing that helps me is I get around other people, and a lot of times my higher power speaks to me through other people. So I have a 6 a.m. meeting, it's on Zoom. I get online, it's a 12-step meeting, and I start my day by doing some deep breathing and turning my day and everything that occurs in it over to a God of my understanding. It's a tool to vent, to pinpoint what it is that I'm currently in fear about, is a tool, and it helps me to get into the flow when I'm sitting there with a paper and pen, trying to just get into the spirit of writing. And P.S., you know what? I also have recently started using a tablet with a pencil because I can't always find a pen that works. Riddle me that. Why I have a drawer full of pens that don't work is beyond me. Again, I think that that's something psychological I need to look into. I don't put the pens that work away, but the pens that don't work, I don't throw them away. What's going on there? So essentially, what I'm saying is I get to a mind dump mentality through journaling in the morning, through writing things that I'm in fear about. It kind of has an indexing effect when inside my brain I'll wake up and it feels chaotic up there. When I write them out, I look at what I wrote about. I'm hearing what's going on in the meeting. I'm hearing connections being made. Someone will share something in the meeting that has to do with what I wrote or what I'm currently writing. I start to see the magic of the universe. And I will realize that that fear is slowly dissipating, right? It's slowly evaporating. And so, you know, it's like a wringing out, WRING, wringing out of anything that collected during the evening and sort of solidified in my brain. It's ringing out. It's like in yoga when they have you do twists in the morning. It's to wring out the spine, right? It's supposedly supposed to um, help you get to that place in your body and in your spirit and your mind that's a fresher kind of ready to receive, right? If we take a saturated rag and we're trying to sop up a big old puddle on the counter of water, it's not going to work very well with an already saturated rag. So that's the reason for this. We kind of want to start fresh, right? That is the reason for the recognizing that I am powerless over people, places, and things, and that the way I see situations is not always accurate. There's a quote. I don't know who said it because it's been attributed to many, many people, but essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's that I don't know what I'm thinking until I write it. So finally, it's like I get to the point where, oh, my jumbled brain, my jumbled mess. I thought I was really pissed at this person or this situation that I didn't have any control over is not really it. I'm actually not really pissed over that. Really, I recognize that if I hold a mirror up to my own soul and spirit, if I'm even perceiving that person correctly, I do the same thing sometimes or have done the same thing. I've reacted out of frustration, fear, anger, whatever, right? And so for me, it just helps diffuse whatever is going on. And because I'm a visual person, the more I write, the more clarity I can see on the tablet or the paper in front of me, right? I just really am able to clearly visualize what's going on. And really, it's not anything personal for me. It's just that my brain is telling me a bunch of stuff that isn't really true, right? And P.S. and sidebar, true confessions, all honesty here. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, immediately I'll start watching like a YouTube video or something like that. Okay. So I'm not saying I'm perfect at doing this every single day, but I know that I operate from the best place of deep breath, fundamental yes, acceptance of the world and all the things that I think are wrong with it that I'm going to fix if I clear that slate. It's like looking for something in the dark. If I flip on the light switch, I can see more clearly. All right. Next time we'll be understanding opportunity over obligation in this purge system that I've been using. And with that, I want to remind you to be kind, rewind, and thank you. I thank you so, so much for the honor of your time. Take what you like and leave the rest behind.